Esse chega ali,
Não, acho que chega lá.
装脸吗？Moi après c'est la descente. Va jusqu'au point. Va jusqu'au point. Parce que tu vois la descente déjà.
Sí, pero bajar es más rápido. igual van saliendo, es como un despegue de avión más o menos, necesitan pedir pista, van uno a traer otro, traer otro, traer otro.
Ah, y allá en Bariloche, había guantes tirados, había gorros,
Ah, sí.
de todo había tirado, lentes.
Tips and tricks for you guys at home, just easy ways you can help out your local environment, so hopefully you realize it's not too difficult before the end of the half hour. However, just before we get going, just a couple of little groundkeeping rules. Just whilst we have our animals out here, to keep them nice and comfortable, if we could all just stay seated and avoid touching them. I know it's a hard ask, they are very adorable, but it does mean they'll be nice and comfortable and hopefully just stay out with us a little while longer. If you need to leave at any point during the show, totally fine as well. If you could just wait till we've got the animals secured away again, that'd be really great. You might have seen them today. If not, definitely keep a little lookout for them. But we have a wild family of falcon that live up on the mountainside. Wonderful to see. They are an endangered species. Everything in the show is on the menu though, so let's not unnecessarily open that door. That'd be really great. But yeah, you're more than welcome to take photos, ask questions, all the rest. And I will get going, because my first guest is one of my all-time favorite species at the park and just in general. Now, these guys have been around on the planet for 235 million years. And this lovely young lady, hi sweetie, her name is Hercules. And Hercules is actually one of our juvenile tuatara here at the park. Now, tuatara, it means ridges on the back in Tereo Maori. So you can see these beautiful little ridges that are starting to form down her spine here. In the dominant males, these are always going to be a little bit larger, and they're just a quick little easy identifier on how to tell the two apart. But we will get facts straight right away. She is not actually a lizard. She is going to get a little bit sad if you call her that. Because these guys are actually something entirely unique. There's nothing around on planet Earth today that is even remotely related to these guys. They're actually in a class of reptile all on their own. So a class, think of it as a big family group, and across the planet we generally have three. So those are snakes and lizards, crocs and alligators, turtles and tortoises. Every single reptile on the planet, with one single exception, and that is the tuatara. And what that means is that there is actually a fourth additional order, but it only contains them. All of the other reptiles that were in this same order, they were all dinosaurs, so we do know what happened there. But a little bit of a lonely life for these guys. They've actually separated from the rest of the reptiles such an incredibly long time ago now that there is actually a little bit of a debate. No, you cannot. Now, there's actually a little bit of a debate as to whether they're closer to the birds. So these guys have a couple of unique characteristics that are quite unusual for a modern-day reptile. First of all, they are actually missing the little ear hole that is indicative of where a reptile's ear usually sits. They obviously do have ears, it's just a much more primitive form of bone conduction. So think of it as almost like a pre-ear. Now these guys also have 3 rows of teeth, and the teeth are directly fused to the skull. So unfortunately there's no replacing them. If these guys hurt their teeth throughout their life, in their elder years they're going to have to find things that are nice and soft and easy to eat. So earthworms, grubs, slugs, stuff like that. Now you might have heard of this next one. So these guys do actually have what is referred to as a third eye as well. So a lot of species have this, but the technical name is a pineal gland or a parietal eye. So don't be too sad if you haven't seen it. It lives underneath the surface of the skin. It's actually only visible for the first couple of days of their life before it starts getting covered over with a very thick layer of scales. Now, the eye underneath does actually have everything a working eye requires. It even has a lens. Now, it doesn't hold images like yours or mine. So, a couple of reasons that we think that they have this. First of all, it is a little bit of a shadow detector. So in the past, everything that wanted to eat these guys, huge bird of prey, meant the danger usually coming directly from above. So if these guys sense a little shadow moving around above them, hopefully that eye just gives them a little bit of extra warning so they can get nice and safe back down into their burrows into safety. Now, we do also think that this eye acts like a little bit of a solar panel. So these guys are what we call ectotherms, just meaning that they get their warmth from the environment around them. So the more vitamin D they can get into these little bodies of theirs, the healthier they're going to become. So we do think that eye just collects a little bit more for them. If you could grab a seat for me, you guys, that'd be really great. Thanks, guys. Now, we actually used to think these guys were completely extinct. Thankfully, we managed to find a couple of hundred on some of our predator-proof offshore islands, and the breeding program has been so successful that we have gone from only a couple of hundred all the way up to 80,000. Unfortunately, that does mean all of our islands are very much full of tuatara. We can't actually put any more on there without hurting the ones that are all there already. So these guys are here at the park as what we call insurance populations. So So if anything ever happens to the ones out in the wild, these guys are here nice and safe. And we can send them back out to help repopulate. But unfortunately, the reason that we can't release them onto the mainland is because of that rat predation. So rats, obviously, on the ships with the first settlers, and as soon as they arrived, Tuatara numbers started taking a massive dive. And that's because rats like to eat their eggs. And Tuatara, like everything they do in their life, it is all done extremely slowly, and that does include reproduction. So it takes mama anywhere from 1 to 5 years just to lay those eggs, and when she's ready, she just buries them in the soil and leaves. She does not come back. And those eggs now actually take a full 1.5 years to hatch. So if your eggs are buried in the sand somewhere for 1.5 years, there's a really good chance that most likely an entire little family of rats are going to find and eat every single last one of them. So we're hoping if we get to predator-free 2050, January 2051, we can start flinging these guys back out into the wild. But what I do think is one of my absolute favorite facts about these little guys is actually just how long that they can live. So young lady here, she's very much still a juvenile. She's actually about to have a birthday next month, and she's about to turn 27. Now, these guys aren't actually considered adults until they're well into their mid-30s, a little bit like some of us. But they don't actually stop growing, sometimes into their 40s, 50s, sometimes even 60s. Once they hit full size, you actually can't figure out how old they are. The little rings that form in their legs and fingers just stops after a certain age. So the only way to know for sure is to be there when they hatch and to be there when they pass away at the end of their long, long lives. And I'd love to tell you that we know how long this is, but we don't. They keep outliving all the keepers and the researchers. So some of the older legends suggest that these guys can actually get well into their 300 years old. The oldest one that we know of, though, the oldest one on record, that is, his name is Henry, and he lives down in Invercargill in the Southland Museum. Now, his age is an estimate because he was found in the wild as a baby, but he is somewhere between 125 and 135 years old, showing no signs of slowing down either. Had his first babies at 110. Currently has 2 girlfriends, Lucy and Mildred, and both of them are 50 years younger than him. So he's great, but no reason that young lady here isn't going to outlive me, all of my fellow keepers, and practically every single visitor we get here at the park. On that note, though, I am going to pop her back because I can hear my next guest squawking away there, but I think we can give her a little round of applause just for being a very good speaker. You have a good one. You can hang out down there. But while you are here in New Zealand, you will hear a lot about all sorts of different invasive animals. Most of them probably going to be mammals. Not a lot of people know the animals that have a little bit of a bird problem. And that's the case with these two. Hi, guys. Now, these guys are Australian rainbow lorikeets. So, keyword being Australian. So definitely not from our shores. We had to give them some real quality Australian names as well. So this is Shane and Bruce. And unfortunately, these guys got brought in for the pet trade. In the early 90s, you could go into any pet store in the country, buy as many lorikeets as your heart desired. You didn't need to do any homework. You didn't even need to have a license. You could just go in and buy 100 if you really wanted to. Take them home that very same day. And people were taking them back into their lovely, quiet lives without knowing anything about what they'd done. Because with any new pet, always important to do a little bit of homework and find out what you get yourself into. Because if you haven't done that with these two, huge mistake. They are exceptionally intelligent. They're actually about as intelligent as your average 2-year-old child. This is where the troubles began. Because just like a good toddler, if the folks are bored, well, you are going to hear about it. And people were heading off to school and work, coming home to carnage and destruction. Torn up pillows, torn up curtains, poop on the floor, noise complaints from the neighbors. And it was only at this point, when the panic started to set in, that these poor people decided to jump onto the internet, find out a little bit more about their new animals, maybe how long they can live. Now, rainbow lorikeets can live for 25 years. At this point, serious panic. What have we done? Letting this crazy loud animal into our lives? And instead of just doing the responsible thing, trying to find a little home for the fellas here, they did the easy thing. They opened up the kitchen windows and set them free. If you could just wait outside for me, please. Thank you. Now, usually, pets don't actually make it out in the wild. Rainbow lorikeets, unfortunately, are extremely adaptable. And up in the North Island, where it's a little bit warmer for them, They've started forming flocks in their hundreds and sometimes thousands. They are prolific breeders. They can raise up to 3 clutches of young a season. And breeding season, they also turn into the worst. So these guys do a little tour of the neighborhood. They wait till mom and dad aren't home at any neighboring nest, and then simply throw out any eggs they find inside. The eggs they throw out aren't going to hatch, which means more food for them, more nesting sites for their family members, less competition for them overall. Now, obviously, back in Australia and the areas where they are native, they do have similar habits, but the birds over there have had a lot of time to learn and deal and evolve with it. Our birds, they've only had about 40 years. They have absolutely no idea what's happening. So, if you do see these guys out and about on your travels, please do let the Department of Conservation know. Hopefully, it's just someone's escaped pet and they could be reunited with their owners. But their little message for today, just responsible pet ownership. Now, I'm sure you guys are all very responsible people coming to the Kiwi Park here today, but we've all got that one friend, don't we, that just goes out and buys a new animal on a whim. Maybe if they're thinking of doing that, please intervene. Get them to do a little bit of homework. 25 years might seem like an exceptionally long time for these little guys, but for some of the larger parrot species, cockatoos for example, that is 125 years. So that is a multi-generational pet that you're getting yourself into there. And you're welcome to come on in now if you'd like. Thanks for that. They just are not the greatest colorful snacks to be escaping into the wild there. But, no, you're all good. Another crazy thing that we have here that you guys might have heard of, it's called a neophilic species. So that just means it's the love of new things. So new food, new people, new toys, anything new, they absolutely love it. Great example are our Kia, our alpine parrot. So if you guys haven't been down to Milford yet, they do rip apart cars for fun. Now, all of our neophilic species here at the park, they get their food with little puzzles and enrichments to keep their minds occupied, because they are going to let you know if they're not having a good time. However, another neophilic species that doesn't sometimes get quite the same rap as the Kia is this little guy right here. So this is Boots, and he is one of our buff weka. And today I was quite careless. I left my backpack lying around with my lunch in it. And he's going to give us a little example of what these guys are getting known for out in the wild. And it is this. Now, obviously, that was a very Boots-appropriate snack. I was not going to be eating a day-old chick anyways. And people think it's really cute. They encourage the behavior. Please don't, though, because, first of all, human food never really that great for animals. And, well, it's really not fun when they're making off with more important things, like car keys, cell phones, engagement rings, all of my cutlery on my camping trip. So yeah, they built the deepest of tunnels in the densest of bushes, and I have spent many, many hours trying to get my stuff back. It does not work. So his little message, wherever you might be in New Zealand, always keep your stuff nice and contained, otherwise you might actually have a Boots of your very own coming in and taking all of your things. But the nice thing about New Zealand, you're more likely to get robbed by a bird than a person, so we do have that going for us at least. And you guys might have seen that little video in the beginning. This actually used to be the unofficial rubbish dump of Queenstown. So it wasn't quite a disgusting state when the Wilsons took it over about 30-something years ago. We've done a lot of amazing work since then. We've planted something close to 30,000 trees just in this little area alone, and it's brought so much wildlife back, stuff that you don't even see in the rest of Queenstown. But something that is very important to us, and it is something that you will see while you're wandering around, it is a series of traps. Now we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, but if you don't know what they look like, we've generally got our little example box, which has been moved. Oh, so it's just this big wooden box that you guys can see on this side of the show area. So this one obviously isn't armed, but these are things that are aimed at things like rats and stoats. You'll also see some yellow boxes about yay big mounted to trees. Those are specifically aimed at possum. So please keep your fingers clear. And if you are wandering around the park and you see anything brown and furry running around, always important to let one of us know. We might already know about it, but always a great idea to have an extra set of eyes, just so we can continue being a lovely haven for all of our wildlife. But my next guest is probably the reason that you guys are at the park today. Now, we do have one girl that doesn't mind coming out on such a bright afternoon. Now, she is our oldest Kiwi, and her name is Terry. This is Terry. She is our terrifying tired taxidermy Kiwi. She's had an exceptionally long career in conservation. She's not quite ready for retirement just yet. But we do need her help, because Kiwi are nocturnal birds. And it is a little bit more than that. They are absolutely terrified of the light. To bring one out, even on a really dark day, it's a pretty cruel thing to do. And we do try to avoid it at absolutely all costs, unless really, really necessary. So we are going to use the help of tired Terry just to point out a couple of features that are sometimes a bit harder to spot for yourself in the dark. Don't worry, we do have the real thing. We didn't lure you in here with Terry. But all around the world where you have small furry mammals, so think rats, mice, voles, shrews, possums, raccoons, any of that kind of stuff. New Zealand, we don't actually have any. We have 3 land-based mammals. They are all bats, and they're all the size of your palm. So tiny, tiny little things. So potentially that is why we ended up with the kiwi, because we ended up with a bird that has some very unbird-like qualities. So a few things that are different about the little kiwi. First of all are these little feathers of theirs. So they, sorry, what?
A mouse, a mouse.
Did it
Just ran into the trash.
run across a beam
Yeah.
into a tiny adorable house?
Yes.
Kind of like it was planned that way, but they're incredibly late. These are our show rats. There are actually 3 of them, but Bacon, their names are Bacon, Liz, and Tomato. Bacon has decided that today she's not having it. So there are actually only 2 of them in there. However, if you see any more than that, it is not part of the show. Please let me know. I need to know where those guys are. Now, obviously these are pet rats that we take care of here for advocacy purposes and to check that your rat spotting skills are on point, so excellent job. You guys make great conservationists. But I know they're not supposed to be here. I do work in training though, and it's quite a lot of work to make them do this, and I am quite proud. But we'll just let the other lady take her little time, so if you see her coming across, let me know. I'll close them up, they can have their popcorn. But we'll get back to young Terry here. Now, yeah, like I said, so these feathers don't actually have any stiff internal barbs or quills that give birds' feathers their shape, and instead completely scrunchable. You can actually mush them up in your hand like this and they'll return back to shape. Their whole body is covered in this stuff, and it's actually only there for warmth. You're welcome to come and give Terry a gentle pat after the show if you'd like. These guys are also the only bird in the world that has the nostrils all the way down here at the tip of the beak. Every other bird in the world, it sits up here, closer to the eyes. What that allows them to do though, as they're walking along, they're taking their little beak and they're actually pushing it into the ground to smell for food. They have an incredible sense of smell. Second best of any bird on the planet, in fact. Only bird with a better sense of smell than young Terry here is actually the condor from South America, which is a huge bird of prey that generally smells its prey from kilometers away. So Terry, next in line. But, in case you have kind of forgotten just what Terry is, I do have this tiny little pale thing. So this is all that is left of the kiwi's wing. So they do have wings, but they're actually so small you can't see them on a live bird at all. I'm having to move Terry's feathers quite a lot. Now, this wing, nothing attached to it, getting smaller and smaller through the generations, potentially thinking in the next couple hundred years or so, it might actually disappear entirely. It's what we call a vestigial wing, and it just serves as a reminder that they did have a flying ancestor long, long, long ago. Now, I'm just doing a quick little breeze through just because there are so many of you, but feel free to come in and have a little look close-up after the show if you'd like. And if you want something incredibly weird to Google later, have a little look at what a live one looks like. Because Terry's, it's there, but you can't see it as well. Now, at the very tip of the wing, all the way at the end, they have a little tiny claw, kind of like a velociraptor. They're very, very cool little guys. But, because these guys no longer fly, they have been flightless now for about 50 million years, they don't actually have any sort of hollow bone either. So most flying birds, they'll have a series of hollow bones, basically to save some weight to help them stay up in the air. Kiwi, they have heavy marrow in their legs, just like we do. It's actually about 30% of their body weight that's just in these little legs, and it's also their main form of defense. It is a horrifically powerful kick that you really don't want to be on the wrong end of, believe me. Even the kick from a juvenile is going to draw blood, and it is a 3-person job to health check a bird this size, because somebody has to be holding onto those legs for dear life the entire time. Hey, there we go. You're a little bit late, that's okay. Your sister might have finished all the popcorn, but you can go back in there. There we go. But my favorite and most eye-watering fact about the little kiwi, this is the average size of Mama. So Mama weighs in at around 2.5 kilos. This size and weight replica of her egg. Now this clocks in between 350 to 400 grams. We'll hold that next to Mama for some size comparison. Yep, we did do the math on this one, you'll be happy to know. If this was a human child, this baby would weigh 17 kilograms, 36 pounds. That is a 4-year-old child. And in the course of her lifetime, Mama's going to lay about 100 of these, 2 to 4 every year of her life for over 50 years. Now, obviously, this is not the real thing, far too precious to bring that out here, but it is a size and weight replica, so I will pass this around if you guys want to have a little feel. That is the average, so they actually do get bigger and heavier than that. In case you can't quite picture it, also got this very informative, handy-dandy Eggs, Ray. Thank you. Now, I'm assuming I'm not going to have to point out the egg to anybody. Pretty sure you guys are smart, you can spot that one. What I will point out, however, these little dark patches in front of Mom's body right here. This was taken 24 hours before this female laid. These little dark patches, all of Mom's internal organs, squashed to the side to make room for this gigantic egg. Now, this is actually so extreme. In the last 3 days, there's so little room inside of Mom's body that she can't eat. And in the last 24 hours, she actually can't drink either. There's just nowhere to put it. So we think it's pretty fair enough that once she lays this egg, that's it. That's the only part of parenting she is ever going to get involved with. It is old Dad's turn from here on out. So Dad comes along and he sits on or he incubates the egg. And it might not seem like a fair trade after that egg, but Kiwi incubation is much longer than most other birds. Most birds, it's about 3 weeks. Kiwi, 3 months. Old Dad, 23 hours a day. The benefit though, when that baby hatches, it's had so much time to grow and develop inside the egg, out comes a tiny carbon copy of Mom and Dad. Looks identical, got all of its feathers, eyes are open, they come out fighting. They can run, fight, find their own food, regulate their own body temperature, they are good to go. And that is what they do, they go pretty much straight away. If they're still hanging around Mom and Dad's territory after about 2 weeks, Mom and Dad actually kick them off. They don't want anything to do with them. Sounds pretty rough, but this was a great strategy, because in the past, all of their predators were up in the sky. Even if you're a little baby Kiwi, you just go find a nice thick fern, stay nice and still, sleep the day away, get up in the middle of the night when there's no predators. Sadly, when we arrived, and we started introducing things like our next guest, that's when it all changed, because mammals use their nose when they hunt. And you can hide all you like, but anything like Mr. Chaos here is going to be able to find you. Now this is Chaos. He is an Australian brush-tailed possum. So again, keyword, Australian. So we had to give him a little bit of a nasty name to remind ourselves of the damage that his brothers and sisters are causing out in the wild. Now we do talk about them being really mean and nasty, but he's a very sensitive boy. So I'm going to get everyone to sit nice and still, because sometimes he gets a little bit of a fright and he runs back. But does anybody actually know how we ended up with possum here in New Zealand? They are covered in it. Oh, classy Chaos. I'll put you out of your misery. Unfortunately, it was for the fur trade. Back in the early 1800s, 2 early European settlers wanted to make a bit of money. They sailed over to Tasmania in a boat, stuffed it full of as many possum as they could possibly fit, brought them back, and deliberately released them out into the wild. The problem with that? Here in New Zealand, we actually have nothing large enough in our forests to eat possum. We don't have dingo, we don't have goanna, we don't have snakes, or nightmarish and large spiders. We don't even have forest fires or floods of the same magnitude. And those all work together to keep the possum in what's called its ecological niche in the environment. So here, they had a great old time. They started eating and breeding. And at the height of our possum problem in the early 90s, we ended up with 80 million possum. We've only got 25 million sheep, and that's apparently what we're famous for. And sadly, they've also changed since they've gotten here. Possums in New Zealand are bigger, darker, vastly more aggressive, and worst of all, no longer vegetarian either. In Australia, these guys stick to a predominantly plant-based diet. They're important pollinators. Here, however, they've been seen pulling fully fledged kia and kaka off of their nest to get to the eggs and chicks underneath. And if you guys haven't seen the parrots in the back of the park yet, they are large birds with knives on their faces for something of Chaos's size to be taking on. But all of this together does mean that the possums have actually changed so much that we can't send them home. They've changed that much, they'd outcompete the natives. We have created a bit of a super possum. But we had to make a difficult decision here in New Zealand. It was either keep the mammals, risk losing over 72% of our native species that are threatened, or try to get rid of the mammals as fast as we possibly can and try and save the little natives that we do have left. So it's been an amazing effort. We've actually managed to halve our possum numbers. Sounds fantastic when you put it that way, but it still means there's 40 million out there, and the damage that they are doing is incredible. But there is an easy way to help, especially if you're local. Just join your local community trapping group. Doesn't mean that you have to be the one out there with the traps. We realize not everybody can do that. That's totally fine. But it funds the trap lines that run through all of our local forests. If you're from overseas, you guys get the understandably more fun job. But it sounds really weird, so don't judge me. Shopping. So yeah, that's usually the reaction there. So this is possum fur, 100%. This is it mixed with merino. That's how they make it into clothing. No matter what the product, and no matter where you find it, whether it's a gift shop or a grocery store, all of it comes from wild-caught possum. absolutely illegal to farm possum here in New Zealand, and the profits from these programs go back into those trap lines that we so desperately need. But yeah, believe me, I know how weird it sounds. I've been a vegetarian all my life, and this is not what I thought I'd be doing. But I am a conservationist, and I know that we need all of the help that we can get. It is unfortunately a race against the clock for all of our wildlife here in New Zealand. However, it's not all doom and gloom. Once our kiwi hit full size, they're actually quite capable of defending themselves against most things. So I have a quick little video to show you guys before we hopefully get our last guest out. So this is a kiwi burrow with a wildlife camp setup. Possum, hoping to come on in and sneak an egg in for dinner. Thankfully, Mom's home. She's not having that. She gives in the absolute beatdown. Oh, poor Possum. Beaten black and blue. Quite confused. Maybe didn't expect this from a bird, but leaves without getting to the egg. And that's actually a huge portion of the work that we do here at the park. If you could take a little baby kiwi, raise them up anywhere above a 1.5 kilo weight, that is what they can do to a possum. And their chances of survival go from about a 5% in the wild all the way up to about a 65 to 75% chance of survival, just because they're a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. Now, our next guest seems like he wants to maybe come on over. So everything we do here with our animals is always based on positive reinforcement. All of our animals have a way to say yes, and they have a way to say no. Currently he is sitting in between both of them, so we'll see what he wants to do. But he is our next little guest, and his name is Koru. He is a kereru, or a New Zealand wood pigeon. Oh, here he comes. Good boy. Oh, wait, that's the wrong spot. But he's getting there. Now, like I said, this is his first summer in shows as well, so sometimes he gets a little bit nervous. He's a little bit confused as to where the actual exit is, but that's okay. We'll give him another second or two. Matt's going to try and convince him on down. But before you guys are severely underwhelmed at seeing a pigeon, all right, this is actually a very important pigeon. These guys are actually one of the 4th largest pigeon species in the world, and it is their size that actually makes them so essential. So if you have a look at his teeny tiny adorable head here, hi Koru, you want to come on down? Good job, good job. So yeah, if you have a look at his little head, it's about the size of a New Zealand $2 coin. He can actually swallow seeds and berries, pretty much the same size. And what's even more remarkable, that same seed and or berry will pass all the way through the digestive tract. Out the other end, also the same size. Now, this is another one we did the math on, you'll be happy to know. That is the same as you or I eating and then passing a rock melon or cantaloupe whole. So yeah, pretty eye-watering stuff there. But here in New Zealand, there are about 70 different plants that rely on these guys solely for their seed distribution. So without them, our forests would look a heck of a lot different. Good job, buddy, good job. Now, as he's doing these little flights between Matt and myself, you should be able to hear some very loud wing beats from him. So kereru are often heard before they're seen, and this is because the primary feathers, which are the feathers on the very outer edge of the wing, are extremely unaerodynamic. And as they fly, they bash through the air, basically making an absolute racket. And this is a form of communication between the birds. So our New Zealand vegetation is quite dense, difficult to see through. So in any given area, you might actually have a large number of kereru sitting together, roosting together, but they might not actually be able to see one another. So if one of their friends hears the telltale sound of another one of their mates taken off, usually a good idea that they get out of the way as well. And a lot of the smaller birds will use this as an early warning system too. Hey buddy, do you want to come on over again? Thinking about it. Now, something that we unfortunately get these guys brought into us quite a lot here at the park, and it is something that you guys can actually help with at home. I think we might actually just pop him on back just before this beam up here, a favorite spot, but it will take us hours to get him back down because it is his favorite view spot. Yeah, there we go. I spoke too soon, but that's okay. We'll see if we can convince him on back. Just a fair warning, the danger zone does end somewhere by the front of your feet there, so he's usually pretty good, but every now and then he's a bit of a dick. But, unfortunately, these guys, like I said, we get brought in for something called window strike. So it is exactly what you think it is. You've done an amazing job of cleaning all the windows in the house. Looks so good, you can't even tell there's a window there. And sadly, neither can the birds, and they do fly straight into it. Particularly kereru, as they do like to eat fermented fruits and berries. And if you've been having one too many fermented items, and then trying to fly, it might be a little bit harder than it already is. But I have a feeling that might be us for the afternoon, Matt, and I have a feeling, I spoke too soon. He's on an adventure today. But an easy way that you guys can actually help with this at home is just to straight up stop washing your windows. Get them out.
È la rama che è stata, no?
Sì.